Everyone who fought at Troy has long returned home. Either Lord Odysseus is dead, lost in Poseidon's graveyard, or he has chosen not to return, to abandon your mother, his kingdom, and you.
It's the Eric Roberts podcast, and I'm joined by my good friend Roy to discuss the Odyssey from 1997.
You know, when you asked me to be a featured guest on your show all those months ago, I had no idea what a long, strange trip we were embarking on, ED. You could almost say that you and I are sailors on our very own two-man voyage of sorts. And you could even write like a really epic poem about us, because like every movie we watch, it seems like Roberts records 3 more and they spring up, and there's no telling if we'll ever reach home with this thing. It really is a veritable catch-22.
Yes.
ED, we're like those characters of antiquity that you read about. We're always tilting at windmills until we inevitably submit to our God, not unlike Uncle Tom's in our slavish devotion to Eric Roberts. It occurred to me while we're watching this movie this week, we've been living out our very own utopia.
I'd follow you to the ends of the earth, brother.
Are you ready to get Iliad for 1997's The Odyssey?
I got a license to Iliad. Did you watch Did you watch it?
I saw the movie.
Oh, you always watch them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I watched it as well. I watched it as a young man when I was in high school. I'm not sure.
Oh,
if
you did.
the same.
I saw the commercials for it on television. It had Ozzy on it. Seems like they promoted the heck out of this thing.
Yeah, I was into the Odyssey around this time. I probably had first read it when I was in probably 9th grade. So I was 14 or 15 when I was first exposed to it. I did read the Iliad first.
I've never read the Iliad. I read the Odyssey also in 9th grade.
Yeah, I didn't get into the Iliad as much as the Odyssey. But this is another Andrei Kochalevsky.
Oh, yeah. Looks like he had all the time and budget of Runaway Train on this, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he had Jim Henson's Creature Shop helping him out. And it looks like Francis Ford Coppola helping him out a little bit.
Yes, this was Francis Ford Coppola, Fred Fuchs' American Zoetrope with Hallmark Pictures production.
A major entertainment event from 1997.
Yeah, somehow they got those public domain rights away from Dino De Laurentiis, who had produced at least 2 versions of the Odyssey before this. There's a weird thing in Hollywood that where public domain properties, there are these like unwritten rules and unspoken agreements that certain studios get to make, and certain people kind of own properties that anyone can really make. Like you'll notice that even though Bram Stoker's Dracula is public domain, that they had to call Dracula from 1992 Bram Stoker's Dracula because it was not released by Universal. Universal had the secret rights to public domain material somehow.
Yeah, I don't know
then
how
you'll
that
see
works.
Some people will flout it, like they'll put out a big Frankenstein or mummy or something, and some no-name person will be like, I'll put out a direct-to-video mummy, public domain. But you'll never see 2 different studios putting out a high-budget, high-octane competing mummy pictures, both called The Mummy.
I wonder about Shakespeare. He seems like kind of a free-for-all.
I think Kenneth Branagh owns all the Shakespeare rights.
Hey, Roy, do you think Armand Assante has ever been in a Shakespearean production?
Probably. I mean, what actor hasn't? I don't know if he's ever been in a movie of one. I know he was Belisar the Cajun.
Well, he plays Odysseus, the titular hero in this, what is it, a 3-hour epic?
Just shy.
Mini-series event.
Yeah, probably ran 3.5. Well, it was 2 nights, so each one probably filled a 2-hour hole on TV, I imagine.
A timeless tale of an absentee father and a philanderer as well, who's trying to get home to his wife.
That's right. Penelope.
Well, I did a little bit of, I guess you could say, research or refreshing my memory, because, see, I thought that the story of the Trojan horse was from the Iliad.
So did I.
But it is, in fact, from the Odyssey. It's a story left out of the Iliad, as is Achilles' death is not in the Iliad either.
Oh.
Yeah,
was that in this Odyssey or no?
No. Hector's death is in it. But we can get into that. Well, I guess we can just rip into the old plot, unless you had a little bit of housekeeping you wanted to conduct.
I noticed gas prices are getting really high again. It makes me feel dumb for selling all of mine. Oh, we're doing this in early June. We probably won't have another episode before Bloomsday, so it's very fitting that we're doing the Odyssey just in time for Bloomsday.
Oh yeah, nice.
For those who don't know, Bloomsday is June 16th, and it celebrates the day that is depicted in the novel Ulysses, wherein the character Bloom goes on his own Odyssey around the city of Dublin, and some events mimic things in Homer's Odyssey. And on Bloomsday, June 16th, you can go to Dublin, and people will guide you on tours and pub crawls or things around all of the places that Bloom goes to in the novel, though many of them don't exist anymore. On one Bloomsday, I went with a friend of mine to a museum for a Bloomsday celebration here in Los Angeles. Then afterwards, we went to a bar where a crew he'd been on for some production was having a little party. And the bar was, what's the name of that poet you like, the Los Angeles poet?
Bukowski?
Yes, it was a bar that Charles Bukowski had used to go to, allegedly. And it was called Smog Cutters. And let me tell you something. This was the most depressing bar I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how they got the idea to have their party here. I think allegedly there was karaoke on, I think this was a Monday night, but the very idea that this place would be filled with people for a karaoke night was insane. I think there was a machine and no one manning it in a corner. The entire bar was a shotgun set up just straight back, a little corridor, tiny corridor with one pool table and about 3 feet between that pool table and the bar, and then nothing beyond that. And the whole thing was like the size of a person's garage. It had no door. It just had beads that you walked through to get into the bar that covered the whole of the front of the bar.
Just designed to drain your soul.
Yes, it was. You could not imagine anyone with any kind of dreams in life choosing to go to this place.
Oh, geez. Well, I'm gonna kind of walk us through this plot, as is my custom.
Sure.
Because we have a lot of plot.
Oh yeah, we got a 3-hour film. It's probably a 3-hour podcast.
Well, I was going to say that the written epic of the Odyssey begins in media res. Well, this one does not. This one is chronological.
Yes, this is a different ordering than you'll see in the book. It had been so long since I thought about the Odyssey that, I did not remember how it began, but you're right. It begins not like this movie.
But insane to imagine Homer had all that figured out way back then of like, well, I'm going to start it and have flashbacks. And I mean, surely he didn't invent that, but he definitely was I don't know, what would you call it? The codifier of it.
I don't know. I mean, some people, it's one of those things, was there a Homer? Is this Homer's, how Homer told it? And we feel that he's a bard of oral tradition.
Yeah.
And who knows? But yes, it is neat to see that this is a wraparound story kind of thing where, it's like watching Goodfellas or something.
Yeah, these old gimmicks are just so old and they work. But I guess Konchalovsky and his hubris decided he was smarter than Homer.
Somehow. Well, it does. I remember this from reading the Odyssey in high school, that it did seem like an incredible slow beginning to me of getting to an Odyssey. It does not begin with an Odyssey, the book. It begins with Penelope and Telemachus dealing with the suitors, no?
Yes.
And then Telemachus decides to go find out if his father's dead.
Yeah, which happens much later in this story.
Okay.
This televised story.
So for maybe this could be any number of things, of somebody just being like, hey, nobody wants to watch the first hour of a TV movie being these people mill about their mansion and whatnot and deal with it. There's no action for the first part of the book of the Odyssey.
Well, in the TV story, we begin with Odysseus racing across his property. He has his trusty bow in his hand and he's racing to his wife who's in labor, surrounded by servants, but somehow Greta Scacchi, yeah, who I found to be striking. I don't remember seeing her in anything else. I don't know.
You've seen this is the thing about Greta Scacchi that I did not find her striking. In fact, I found her not bad at all, but just as usual, incredibly unmemorable. If you go through Greta Scacchi's IMDb, I'll bet you've seen her in tons of things. And most notably, she is Vincent D'Onofrio's wife, I believe, in The Player. And I say most notably because I remember seeing her name on the poster right under Tim Robbins's, I think, in the video store or on the video covers. That's really the only way I remember her name over the years, is that she's in this. Maybe she's in something like Wide Sargasso Sea or something. I don't know, Scacchi and Sargasso, but I could be even just misremembering that. But she's like, to me, she's somebody that I never remember when I see her in a movie. Yeah,
it's just all done up as a Grecian queen. It kind of did something for me, Roy. maybe I have a thing for that. I don't
Nice.
know. But yeah, so she's surrounded by servants as she's going into labor, and some of them are male servants, but it's only Odysseus that can carry her and pick her up. And they make it as far as a stable, which is very biblical. He carries her into the stable, the sheep stable, and she gives birth to, you say Telemachus, I just say Telemachus. Tillamook cheese is really, I think, how you're supposed to pronounce it. But Telemachus is born, and Odysseus immediately rips him out of his mother's womb and like takes him and holds him up into the sunlight, and the child is screaming with the sun beating down on him, the wind blowing him on this cliffside. I found that to be pretty funny.
It was pretty wacky. You could see what they were going for here was that instead of just having, they want you to feel Odysseus's desire to return home. So they show you this lovely day he has at home before he has to leave.
And him saying, this is all yours, my son. Everything your eyes can't see quite yet because you're blinded still. And then he looks out over the sea and sees a fleet of ships coming, which I kind of found funny because it's a massive fleet of ships. And like, how did he not see those? They're all of a sudden, there they are. And they had some crazy logos on the cells that looked like Shrek to me.
Whoa.
Maybe they're god, one of the gods that they pledge to or whatever.
Ares or something.
Odysseus's rather, his god of choice is Athena. Athena's his fave.
The goddess of wisdom.
Yeah. And he's a wise guy.
That's his thing.
Yeah, it's his thing. He's a clever guy.
He uses his head.
It's the kings Agamemnon and Menelaus who show up, and they come to recruit Odysseus to fight in this war against Troy. And Odysseus had pledged an oath to these guys, so he can't really worm his way out of it. I don't know if you remember what happens in the written story.
No.
There's a funny episode here of Odysseus trying to weasel his way out of his military duty. In the poem, he feigns lunacy. And what he does is he's sowing his fields with salt.
Oh, so he just seems like he's too crazy to go fight. So he uses the scheme.
Yeah.
That is one thing about both this and the Dino de Laurentiis Ulysses starring Kirk Douglas is I don't feel like Odysseus uses as much of his wisdom as he does in the story. Like for example, it would be wise to try to, I don't know. Now he's got to go fight and he's got fields with salt.
Exactly. In the way he does it in front of the kings, and what they do is they take Telemachus and they put him in the path of the plow.
Oh, to see if he's truly insane.
And he turns the plow, which exposes his sanity, and then he has to go fight in the war.
That's really good.
But in the film, he just agrees to go and fight, and he's getting ready to leave. He's going to take that bow with him, but his mother stops him, tells him, "You're not taking it. You're leaving it for your son."
Do you know how to pronounce this? Is she one of those Irenes, or is she an Edina Pappas or Irene Pappas, who in fact played Penelope in the TV movie, a TV movie from France, a 6-hour TV movie, 6-hour plus that you can watch on YouTube called The Odyssey.
Yeah.
It's directed by Franco Rossi, Mario Bava, and someone else. I watched the first 2 episodes plus before we recorded this.
Yeah. So that one starts in media res.
Yes.
Yeah. Am I saying that right? In media res?
Yes, it just always takes me a second to remember what it means.
Yeah, Irene Pappas is the mother. And she played Penelope in the old one. Pretty cool. She's a Greek, apparently.
Yes.
And she's a huge bitch in this one. Very unlikable.
You think so?
Yeah. She says something about leaving the bow for the sun and so forth, and more leaving preparations. This is when we get to the Athena thing. Odysseus takes a sheep head and he offers it at the shrine of Athena, and he asks her to speak to him and tell him how to avoid the war, to give him wisdom. And in this one, he doesn't hear from her. Not yet. Then he goes and speaks to Penelope, his wife, and she's got the baby with her. Odysseus tells her if there is a beard on his son and he's not home yet, that she must remarry, and she's got to give the kingdom to Telemachus. And some mention of this weird tree in the room. Remember this weird tree?
Yes, that the tree represents him to her.
Sure.
Is that what she says?
I think so. I wasn't paying super close attention during this part.
This is one of those things where it's like, do they come back to the tree ever again in this story? I couldn't. That's what I remember them bringing up the tree here, but I couldn't remember if it was ever brought up again.
Yeah, it is a reminder for her because there's moments where she's looking at it later on and then it's going into flashbacks of them having these idyllic moments together.
What's the name of that O. Henry story, The Last Leaf or something like that? Have you ever heard of this story, The Last Leaf?
Oh yeah, The Ransom of Red Chief. That's the only one I remember. Or
this one is about a person who's sick and dying, and there's a plant outside, and the person has determined in their mind, his or her, I can't remember if it's a man or woman, that they will die when the last leaf of this tree is fallen off. And all the leaves fall off throughout the story, but the last leaf just never falls off this plant. And the person lives and lives, I think maybe gets well in the end and survives and finds out that the last leaf on the tree was an optical illusion. One of their loved ones painted a leaf on the wall behind the tree, and it just looked like a leaf was on the tree.
Damn, it's kind of good.
It's really good.
No, yeah, I think what's the other one? The Magi, Gift of the Magi.
Yeah, I can't even think about that one without crying. That's a good story.
Oh man, yeah, and see, that's another one that I probably read right around the time of getting into the Odyssey when I was in junior high. Good stuff. Back in Ithaca here, Odysseus is getting his ships ready, and we meet this guy. We meet the guy playing the flute that looks like a phallus. I had to make a note of that. Yeah, he's got all of his boys. He's got his flute guy. He's got a couple other close buddies who are gonna be with him pretty much through this whole adventure. Oh well, not the whole adventure.
There's the one pretty recognizable British actor. I forget his name. I should have written it down.
Then we meet Euryclea, played by Geraldine Chaplin, the maid who raised Odysseus and who was going to raise Telemachus.
Geraldine Chaplin's had a long, storied career. How do you feel about her?
Well, I love her as Opal from the BBC in Nashville.
Geraldine Chaplin was to sound acting what Charles Chaplin was to sound acting.
What's that? That's just that.
Yeah, she's like a female Eric Roberts, where she could never stop. She just acts and acts and acts, whether it makes any sense or not.
I guess I've never really paid very close attention to her.
This one, I wish they just cart her off with a muzzle on her face.
Well, I did make note that she does look very much like her father, but also if her father had mated with Skeletor.
Yeah.
Strangely,
another way, she's like Eric Roberts. She's very skinny.
She looks very gnarly in the beginning of this, but strangely, later in the story, she does look better. Everyone else gets older, but she somehow looks better. Maybe they use better camera angles or something like that. But there's a nice warm moment between Euryclea and Odysseus. And then he gets on the boat and he sails to Troy. There's a lot of wine drinking and revelry on the boat. The guy's playing his dick flute. People are enjoying it. And then Athena visits Odysseus on the boat. No one else can see her. It's just him.
And it's played by Isabella Rossellini.
Isabella. Yeah. What do you think about her?
I enjoyed her. There were some performances of the film I really liked. Moments were fun. And I thought Isabella Rossellini was really fun in the movie.
Yeah, she's just wild.
Yeah, everybody was kind of wild. And you're always posed, how do you play a god? How do you make this stuff kind of seem real or anything? And this movie never engrossed me, but I did enjoy Isabella Rossellini. She's like, oh, Odysseus, look at your crew.
Yeah.
They make me laugh, Odysseus. That's why you're my favorite.
Yes, and she warns him of them because
she doesn't see much in this crew of guys, which is fair because they don't much register throughout this entire film. He describes them to us and tells us why we should like each one of them, or a few of them at least. And we're like, oh, are we setting up for Ajax and Patroclus, kind of some memorable bros for Odysseus? No, we will never much care for any of these guys.
Yeah,
one guy likes to lie a lot. It's not even the famous guy either. There's one famous character actor in his crew there of guys, and that guy even doesn't, other than the fact oh, I know him from a bunch of movies, nothing.
Yeah, she basically tells him that he's surrounded by a bunch of yes men, and that it's gonna end up hurting him in the long run. And he continues on, and now we get a little condensed sequence of the events of the Iliad with some battlefield stuff in Troy. The war lasts for 10 years. You remember that part?
No, but go ahead.
The Trojan War lasts for 10 years. So when we kind of come into the story of the Iliad takes place during the last few weeks of the war. So it's been a long, hard slog here for these guys. And then we meet a lot of these dudes from the Iliad. We meet Achilles, who chucks the spear through, is it Hector, right? right?
Mm.
Drags his body behind Achilles. Yeah, it does show Achilles being slain, right?
I guess. I don't remember. This whole, you talking about this Iliad catch-up sequence, I don't remember it.
Oh, okay. Yes. So they do kill, Achilles does get killed here. He gets killed by Paris. And there's a hilarious scene where they're gonna burn Achilles' body on a pyre. And it's the most insane artificial rainfall I think I've seen in any film. Do you remember this?
No.
Oh my God. It's like they just had fire hoses on these guys. It's the most like extreme. They're just being bombarded with water. It's classic. Like there's never been rain like that ever in anything else I've ever seen. Pretty good. And so around this time is the Trojan horse episode. We get to see all that stuff.
Now this was where I paid more attention to Trojan horse. You had the one guy that wrote that play that he's buddies with Al Pacino, and he wrote that play that Al Pacino directed a movie of that I don't know. I haven't seen the movie of the play, but he's like Al Pacino's acting buddy. And I think he's in that Looking for Richard. One thing, the guy in his crew that's kind of famous is Roger Ashton Griffiths. And then the guy who plays Laocoon, the soothsayer on the beach that tells them to beware gifts from Greeks, is Heathcote Williams.
His name is Heathcote?
Yes, he's a British guy. And he was a big stage actor, I feels like, and then is in just tons of movies over the years as a character actor. And Roger Ashton Griffiths is, I think, from such things as Gangs of New York, but he's in tons and tons of stuff. But he played P.T. Barnum in Gangs of New York.
Oh, okay.
He was Mace Tyrell on Game of Thrones, is where I think most people will recognize him. Yeah, he had a major Game of Thrones role.
Gotcha.
I still think of him as P.T. Barnum.
We run through all of the Iliad stuff, the Trojan.
But I wanted to bring up the most important thing about this sequence where they're doing the Trojan horse, aside from the awesome sea serpent that devours Laocoon.
He's prancing around in the tide like a complete dumbass.
But what about King Priam?
What about him?
What actor played King Priam, ED?
King Priam was performed by Alan Smithy.
That's right.
Did he look familiar to you?
No, he didn't. And I looked through many researches. I looked through different films by Andrei Kovalevsky. I looked at pictures of Andrei Kovalevsky. I looked at British actors. I could not figure out who played King Priam. I can only imagine that it's David Argesta.
I would say that's a good guess. Damn, the plot thickens.
Yeah, I could not figure out who this guy was.
I mean, did he look anything like Argesta to you from what you remember him looking like?
No.
He could have had work done. That's hilarious. He was played by nobody. We'll hear more about nobody in a little bit.
I've never seen, you see uncredited actor performances, but you never see Alan Smithy actor.
Yeah. What was this? Something happened here. This guy
demanded to be credited so that people knew he didn't like his performance or the movie.
Yeah.
Or is it a contractual thing where he wasn't? In that case, you'd think he would just be uncredited.
Yeah, this is a big mystery, Roy. We need to come back to this.
Another Roberts mystery.
So yeah, and we're still waiting for Roberts, by the way. It's going to take a little bit, but we'll get to him. He's here. Don't worry about it.
Yes, this is not a leading performance from Roberts, I suppose we should point out.
So the Trojans are defeated, and Odysseus is filled with pride after hatching this plan to build this big horse, and I'll have all that take place. And he goes up to the seaside, proclaims his greatness, and this pisses off Poseidon.
Because Poseidon provided that serpent that ate the soothsayer that warned Priam.
Yes, he's in the tide, prancing around, and all of a sudden a sea serpent shows up and devours him.
Yes, which saves the Greeks and the Trojan horse.
Yeah, so he's like, hey, I helped you out here, and you're acting like an asshole. He's like, I'm going to make your trip back.
How did you think that Odysseus was acting like an asshole?
I don't know. I'm not a god, so
I gotta think if I'm Poseidon. Oh, go ahead.
Think about it. Like he pretty much won the war. Give him at least one moment to go. Like no one else is around. He's just going to shout it into the sea.
But doesn't he say he didn't get any help from the gods and all this stuff? Like I did it.
Oh, he does offend the gods. I'm not going to deny that.
If I was Poseidon, I think I agree with Poseidon here. It's like they would have all been dead. None of it would have worked if Poseidon hadn't blatantly provided a miracle.
I mean, too, like these guys believe in gods, all right? They interact with gods.
If a god blatantly shows up right in front of them and saves the day.
Yeah, you don't want to go and I get what you're saying. You don't want to go and be boastful right in front of the ocean. Most unwise, sir.
To display such hubris.
Yeah. If he would have gone into the woods by himself and shouted shouted it into like the knot of a tree or something.
I mean, it's okay to be happy and have a moment to be full of yourself, but why would you go out of your way to offend the gods?
Yeah, this is like a moment of like cocaine hubris where just like he's way too big for his britches and it's going to be rough now. So they get back in the boats and they're heading back to Ithaca and it's not going to be good. First, though, we go back to Ithaca for a minute where Odysseus's mom is being a massive bitch again. And Telemachus is now about 10 years old because this war has gone on for 10 years. Penelope is still holding out hope. No news of the war being won has gotten back to them at all, so they still don't know what the hell's going on. Yeah, some kind of argument between Penelope and the mother, who is despairing or something. I don't remember. Some kind of argument. But most importantly is we see Penelope goes to the seaside at night and is like humping the tide in the moonlight. It's pretty erotic, and asking Odysseus to come home to her. You remember this?
Yeah.
It was pretty nice. You should go and rewatch that part like right now. Yeah, we're going to get this motif over and over and over of these two people, no matter how many years apart they still are connected to each other. They're really going to drive it into you. Trust me. Now, because of offending Poseidon, Odysseus and his crew are lost. Now they're in a fog at sea. And in this fog, they hear sheep. So they know they're close to an island and they find it and they row to shore, find a cave with goods inside. Everything is strangely very big. So we know we're in the Cyclops den now.
This is one of the big things from the Odyssey.
Yeah. And what do you think about the special effects for this Cyclops?
They were all right, I guess. How'd you like this?
There's some pretty gnarly gore here, actually. Cyclops eats a guy, and it's pretty graphic.
It didn't have good effects. George Millier's Odysseus versus the Polyphemus.
Now, this is a trip to the moon guy?
Yeah. Now, let me tell you, they say he made short films, but to me, they're far too long.
This section...
This Polyphemus in this George Millier movie, you could see both of his eyes.
Yeah.
And then he had a third eye in the middle.
He wasn't a Cyclops at all.
No.
Roy, were you a fan of The Storyteller? Jim Henson's The Storyteller?
I don't remember it at all. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah. It was a show. Do you know anything about it?
No.
Oh yeah. It was an anthology series, and it was all done by Jim Henson's people. John Hurt was the storyteller.
Oh, cool.
And he has a dog. He's like, the whole show is like this old storyteller in like a medieval setting kind of cottage. And he's got a dog, and the dog talks and he tells stories and stuff. And John Hurt's great in it as always.
Reminds me of Wishbone.
Yeah, it's kind of feels like that. But this whole section of this miniseries felt very much like the production vibe of the storyteller, right down to the Jim Henson creature effects here for this Cyclops. And the Cyclops is the son of Poseidon.
Oh, yes. So he claims.
And he traps Odysseus and all of his men like go into this cave, and they're going to steal all of this stuff, and they're eating all this cheese and drinking this wine. And the Cyclops comes home, and his door is a giant stone that he rolls in and out. So it's so big that the men can't move it, and they get trapped in there. And he eats one of the guys, I think.
Yes.
Which was very graphic to me. The older I get, I don't know how you feel about gore these days, Roy. Gore is getting harder for me the older I get. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that graphic stuff.
I think that a lot of the fun of gore is more in its humorousness, and it's adding to a story in most cases.
Yeah.
And that kind of joke can get old quickly. And I don't know. To me, I don't know if I have as much of a suspension of disbelief as some people. So a lot of the gore in the movies, I don't forget I'm watching a movie. It's harder for me to watch medical stuff. Yeah, I don't know, some gore, you're right. I remember it sometimes be hard for me to eat when I was watching the show The Nick for the first time. That's been almost 10 years ago, or about 10 years ago. Now I rewatched The Nick, and I was fine eating periods. So maybe I'm becoming less affected by gore as I get older.
I recently watched a film called The Hunt, which is like a horror, kind of a comedy horror film directed by the this Craig Zobel guy.
Oh, I like Craig Zobel. He's made he's got hasn't he directed a TV movie that's coming out or something, or a TV show we watched or something?
Yeah, he's been directing this show with Kate Winslet.
I haven't watched any
HBO.
of it, but maybe I should. He made interesting movies. He made a movie called Great World of Sound and a movie called Compliance that I saw both of. I haven't seen any of his other work, but they were both interesting films.
Yeah, I liked Great World of Sound.
I noticed that the star of Great World of Sound, Pat Healy, who I believe is also the villain of Compliance, he's going to be in Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, I like Pat Healy. He's good.
Me too.
So there's a lot of gore in the movie The Hunt. I also watched kind of as some side work for this one. I watched Troy from 2004.
I watched half of Troy. I was watching it right before we recorded this.
Had you seen Troy before?
I don't know. I think a roommate's had it on DVD or rented it, and I started it once and fell asleep. Some of it in the beginning was ringing a bell, but as it's gone along, not much of it was to my memory. So I think that maybe I only saw the first 10 minutes or something of Troy.
Yeah, I think I'd only seen the first 10 minutes. I watched it to completion. A lot of gore in that as well, and it's very serious film. It's funny.
I only saw the first half.
The Iliad is full of the gods meddling and interacting with the characters. There's none of that in Troy. They take all of that out. Play it very straight.
You're right. And from what I've seen of Troy, there is no supernatural stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of it in the Iliad.
I mean, unless you count what I did see was your buddy Paris get his leg slashed up and then crawl to Eric Bana's legs. He can't get up. And then all of a sudden just throw himself over a horse and ride off.
Yeah.
What a douche.
Complete douche. Yeah. Cost many lives, that guy. Back in our story here.
Oh, yeah. How good was who was that? Is that Diane Kruger? Who's the lady in that plays Helen of Troy?
Yeah. The lady from Inglourious Bastards. Diane Kruger as Helen of Troy. Yeah. And you got Rose Byrne.
We're talk about love making sequences or not love. You want to talk about getting aroused by a Greek classic character there. That Helen was pretty good looking.
What do you think about Rose Byrne?
I don't remember. Was she Eric Bana's wife in it?
She was like a cousin of those guys who gets taken hostage and is like
I think I'm just getting to that part
for Achilles.
I think I'm just getting to that.
She's young and supple here in Troy. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I'm just getting introduced to her character, perhaps.
A couple red-blooded heterosexual men here on the Esoteric Roberts podcast, just having fun. But back to the plot. We all know the story, I think, of Cyclops, and we know that Eric Roberts is not involved in this story.
No, you're right. Odysseus uses his wisdom to get Cyclops drunk.
Yeah, he cleverly tricks him. And
a few more guys get eaten before they get out of there, though, I think, right?
Yeah.
He loses some guys here because the scheme doesn't work, and he has to go to kind of plan B on that. But anyway, they eventually get out of there.
Yeah, and this was the first emotional connection I made to this miniseries, is because the Cyclops eats the phallic flute guy.
Oh, so
no more flute guy. I was pretty bummed about that.
You're right. That is the guy that gets killed. He distracts him with the flute.
Yeah, there goes the soundtrack. Mm-hmm, and so they get away and they get back on the boat, of course. And in the story, he really is Poseidon's son.
Okay.
And instead of the boasting that we see earlier, it is the blinding of the Cyclops that pisses Poseidon off.
Oh, so this is when he runs afoul of Poseidon. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. This is when Poseidon is like, I'm going to extend your journey now in the story.
Okay.
But not in the miniseries.
You're right. It was like this in the other, I believe in Ulysses. This is what we get Polyphemus yelling to Poseidon.
Yeah. And we do in this one, we have Armand Asante taunting the blinded Cyclops. And as they're sailing away, the Cyclops does ask his father to avenge him. So it just adds to his troubles. And the next place they end up is they end up on this island and they meet the god of wind, Aeolus.
Yes.
Played by Michael J. Pollard, who everyone kind of probably recognizes.
He's a classic, that guy. I did not know that he was nominated for an Oscar for Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
But he's just been in tons of things over the years. He's passed away now, I believe.
Yeah, he sadly froze to death, just like he did in Scrooged.
Yes, that's one of his more memorable roles for sure.
Roxanne, remember him from that, is one of the volunteer firemen. Many films. Isn't he the guy in Repo Man?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think he is. But he's great here in his little moment as this god of wind, whose cousin is Poseidon.
The god of wind, he's portrayed kind of I don't know, how would you call this guy? Light in the boots.
Not light in the loafers.
Oh, you don't think so?
Well, I mean, we can get to Hermes here in a little bit.
I thought Aeolus was kind of light in the loafers a little as well. But I
kind of thought
he was just as light in the loafers in the French version, but I thought that might just be because he was French.
I kind of thought of him as more of a jolly old fellow.
Yes. Or you're right.
Doesn't take his godness too seriously, but he's down to help Odysseus.
Yes, he does not feel offended by Odysseus. He likes Odysseus.
And he kind of thinks his cousin Poseidon is too big for his britches as well. And so what he does is he summons all the winds into a bag, except for the west wind, which he uses he's going to blow Odysseus as far as he can. And then he instructs him, when you get close to Ithaca, open the bag and it'll finish the trip for you. And for some reason, Odysseus can't just tell his men, hey, this bag has fucking wind in it. Don't open it.
No, he can't tell them what's up in there.
Yeah. Well, this causes problems because begins to be all kinds of people are starting to wonder what's going on with this bag. They think it's full of treasure. And his wonderful yes men crew, they all start to scheme behind his back about this bag. And as the trip carries on, there's a moment where I think Odysseus is probably just sleeping. And one of the guys is like, I'm going to open the bag and see what kind of treasures are inside. And what happens, of course, blows them way the hell off course. And they can see Ithaca. They can see the horizon of Ithaca.
They came into view of Ithaca, which I thought, weren't they close? If you could see Ithaca, wouldn't the winds at that point have helped them?
Blew them in the opposite direction, man.
Yeah, it did not help them at all.
Literally to the far side of their world, and they end up shipwrecked and starving on just another island out there in the Sea of Eric Roberts, like we've been on, Roy, sailing on this Sea of Eric Roberts from island to island. Do you remember the Final Analysis Island?
I sure do.
That was a good island. He played, so Eric Roberts has played
Island, where he was a Greek.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. He played a Greek in that, and then he played a Greek in It's My Party.
Yes, and here again.
But we're not to him yet. We're almost there, though.
Okay, where are we now? Are we to the island of Circe?
Yeah, we're to the island of Bernadette Peters.
I like this part.
Gay icon Bernadette Peters.
How do you feel about Bernadette Peters? I didn't know she was a gay icon.
Well, I don't know. She's just kind of like a Broadway kind of person.
Sure.
She gives me, I get big Bette Midler energy from her. I get big Barbara Streisand energy from her.
Yeah, I hear that. She's one of those people, depending on the film I see her in, I can find extremely attractive or extremely annoying.
Yeah. Well, much like this and The Storyteller, like I'd mentioned, there was a show, Fairy Tale Theater, which was a big show in the 1980s on HBO.
That I am familiar with.
And Bernadette Peters was in more than one episode of that. I know for certain that she played Sleeping Beauty, but she is in 2 or 3 of those, and she just kind of made for fairy tale stuff like this.
I liked her in this one. I found her attractive. I liked this sequence on Circe's Island. I liked all the animals.
Yeah, I
and
dug
her little,
it too.
Her little palace or whatever. I like this part.
I did too.
This is where the movie really started to pick. So much of the action and stuff in this movie, this film, it feels so choppy. And I don't know where you watched this. I watched, I believe, a DVD rip of it, which I think is the same version that's on YouTube. And they're cutting off part of the screen. Their version of doing widescreen is to cut off the lower third or fourth of the screen. I noticed that in the end credits. And it always, at the beginning, it looked framed oddly to me. Then I was like, well, it must just be it. And then at the end, I was like, no, they're cutting off the bottom fourth or something of the screen. I wonder if you saw the same version. But it made for some odd viewing. I couldn't get a grip on if the film was that badly cut together or if it was just, I'm not seeing the film as it's intended. And so I don't know what it felt like if I was seeing the full versions of these shots as they were on television. And so I couldn't tell with a lot of stuff, but some of it, like when you were talking about some of these sequences, they're so choppy and stuff to me. I just couldn't ever get a ride where I was riding along with this movie. I was never into it, but I liked this part.
Yeah.
I started having some engagement with the movie here.
The Odyssey is the classic episodic type story.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So it's just designed to just feel like, it's like Star Trek, really. These guys are on a voyage and they just keep going from one thing to the next. They have a goal, and Kochalovsky is trying to kind of keep you engaged in that. But it's just way too episodic, one thing to the next.
I don't know. It just may be that the episodes, none of the episodes until this one engaged me.
Same for me.
Somewhat on when they were in the Trojan horse, but
I liked Animal Island.
Yeah, I did too. Animal Island was cool.
Odysseus is pissed because they open that bag of wind and they're starving and they're shipwrecked on this island. And so his guys go off on a hunting expedition to find some food. And this pig ends up running back to the camp and they're going to kill the pig. And another guy comes back and he's screaming, "No, don't do it. It's so-and-so. He's been transformed into a pig by a sorceress." So Odysseus takes it upon himself to go and get his other men back. And
I want to meet that sorceress.
He wants to meet that sorceress. And he climbs this insane cliff. And me and my GF were having some good laughs about him climbing this cliff. Of like, man, couldn't he? Surely there's another way around. Like, why did he choose to climb the cliff?
He's wise. He couldn't think of anything better.
Well, halfway up the cliff, he is visited by Peter Pan himself.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. This guy, he reminded me of how you always see Ariel depicted in various versions of The Tempest.
Yeah. This is a very Tempest section of the story, Sorceress Island, etc. But so it's Hermes who is so light in the loafers that he floats. And he floats up to Odysseus, offers him some grass that is an antidote for this magic. What is it, like a wine? It's a wine. She's going to feed him some wine that's going to turn him into an animal. And so Hermes warns him. He warns
the beast within.
Armand de Sante.
In vino beastitas.
He's like, here's what you got to do. He's like, first of all, eat the grass. It's not poison, which Armand de Sante argues about. He's like, no, you're going to feed me poison. Finally, he gives in.
He's with that Poseidon character.
And he tells him, here's what's going to happen. She's going to give you wine. You're going to drink the wine. She's going to expect you to transform into an animal, but you're not. It's going to surprise her. And then you're going to go to kill her. Draw your blade. Then you have to sleep with her.
Mm-hmm.
And after you sleep with her, she will turn your men back from animals back into men. And that's pretty much how it goes down. He meets Bernadette Peters and he sees all of his men there. He sees a lion. He sees a chimp.
There's a baboon.
Yeah, there's a baboon. There's a panther.
Yeah, this was cool.
So I made a note here in that when he draws the blade, or I guess when he has sex with her to make a deal like you're going to turn my men back or whatever, I would have kept the one guy as the chimp. That would have been my thing, is like, turn all my men back, keep the chimp. And then the rest of the movie would have been way better, don't you think?
You think of panthers and lions as pretty fierce beasts, but weren't they fiercer beasts before they were transformed?
Yeah, they were pretty harsh men, right?
There were no beasts so fierce.
Yeah, exactly. Tying it all back together. I like it. Yeah, but they all turn back, even the chimp guy, which kind of made me sad. And then now, so we get into a combined section from the book, or the poem. In the poem, the Lotus Eater episode happens that's the very first stop they make. They get sidetracked on this island of the Lotus Eaters, and they just are taking opiates and just hanging out, and they lose all track of time for 5 years. So in this one, it's compounded with this sorceress island thing. And so after his men turn back into humans, they just hang out and they take baths and eat flowers all day and just get high. And Odysseus thinks it's been 5 days. It's really been 5 years. And that's like a crazy moment where when it registers on his face. I got to take a quick break.
Good men, not one of us should spill blood over pigs and sheep.
Did you know there was a cut scene in this miniseries?
No, I didn't.
Where Odysseus meets the god of sugar, diabetes. They cut it out. Can you guess who played the god of sugar?
Oh, was it Bruce Valanche?
No, it should have been Bruce Valanche. That would have been good. No, it was
Who was it?
Wilford Brimley was.
Oh wow, because
played
he was diabetes.
Yeah.
I remember this now. There was another whole sequence of the film where it was just about Odysseus trying to fight against cattle barons who wanted to move on to his island and continuing the age-old struggle between sheep barons and cattle barons that ranged from God. I think was it Abraham or Jacob or who was it in the Bible that it was like he was a sheep man and he moved into the cattle territory and that was a trouble, and it runs up through the American Western. They just use different kinds of grazing land, and a good sheep baron will do anything to keep cattle off his countryside and vice versa.
Always some kind of territorial dispute over that kind of stuff. We're almost through the first half of the miniseries. And
Wow.
we're getting close to meeting our boy.
That's right. We still know Roberts yet.
No, but we can feel it. We can feel we're being drawn towards him, I feel. We were talking about Circe, I guess.
Is she in this movie? Is she the one who tells him he's been there for 5 years?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, just to clarify, it is not the Lotus Eaters or whatever who tell him that.
No.
It's Circe.
Yeah, this is like a combination of the sirens and the Lotus Eaters are kind of combined here. These dudes have just been bathing nonstop for 5 years. They have to be so wrinkly and raisiny. So she tells him, she's like, it's been 5 years. She's like, go, if you don't believe me, go look at your boat. It's completely dug in by
That's right.
rocks from the tide, which it cuts to Odysseus back on the beach again where the boat was. So you imagine he had to climb down that fucking cliff again to get there.
Probably.
After 5 years, his legs are all stiff and shit from being in those baths.
Yeah, he's probably thankful he doesn't have to go up.
Yeah, the boat is completely buried by all these rocks. It's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, it's been reclaimed by Mother Nature.
And he starts digging it out. He goes back to her and she tells him that they have to, if they're going to ever find their way home, they have to go to the underworld. He's got to go to Hades and he's got to speak to Tiresias the seer. Now, this is kind of foggy for me. How the hell does he get his boat out?
Shoot, I don't remember that. I just remember them going to Hades or the underworld.
Me too. I think maybe that was glossed over a bit. Surely somebody will help us out.
You get a lot of gnarly special effects with fire and stuff in Hades. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, they find their way into this strange sea cave. Well, it's actually a volcano, I guess, right? There's
wow.
Lava and shit like that, and there's the big gates of Hades. This to me, honestly, was genuinely frightening with the dead spirits.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I like this was following Circe with the Hades part. These were maybe the two best parts of the movie.
I mean, the ancient Greeks and the Romans, like their idea of the afterlife is so sad. There is no good place that you go. You just go to Hades. They have no heaven. I mean, really, the ancient Hebrews, they had Sheol. They didn't really have a heaven. They had just kind of a place where you just went and just were, which is kind of just sad to imagine. But yeah, he goes there. It's very hellish. I mean, there's fire and shit. People aren't burning, but there's magma and flames and whatnot.
Yeah, it's definitely a hellish underworld.
And really
this was some good casting too. I mean, I guess Bernadette, in this version of the movie, the way they produced it, Bernadette Peters is perfect for this film. Perhaps more perfect than Armand Assante.
Yeah,
but
Armand
then they
is so beautifully cast
for so many. I mean, he has the right face. He's got a Roman nose. You would say he looks like an Italian guy, but that works for Greek for sure.
Yeah.
But when they finally get to meet what's his face, the seer. What's his character's name?
Tiresias.
He's the kind of person you would cast in just about any version of this as Tiresias, right?
Christopher Lee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was this a hard up period for Christopher Lee and maybe for Isabella Rossellini? I feel like they both had comebacks just after this or something. Maybe Isabella Rossellini never really went away, but growing up, I don't feel like we saw much of Christopher Lee. You would hear about him, then suddenly the Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars prequels kind of brought him back.
Yes. Yeah. And then, I mean, he was in a couple Tim Burton movies, right?
Which ones?
I know for certain that he's in the Sleepy Hollow.
There you go. That's later too.
Yeah. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, because I don't remember seeing seeing Christopher Lee in anything growing up. I'm probably wrong, but in growing up in the 1980s and 90s, he really wasn't a figure in my youth. And you would hear about people's affection for Christopher Lee. But
I feel like if we would have been dudes that grew up in Britain in the 80s, we probably would have been way more exposed to those Hammer movies.
well, those two are from before our time.
They were, but I feel like they probably played on BBC throughout the 80s and 90s.
Maybe so.
I'm looking at Christopher Lee's filmography from the 90s. Okay. We probably would know him from a cameo in Gremlins 2.
Okay.
He's in briefly.
That's pretty not riding high.
No. Yeah, he did not do much in the 90s. He was in a couple movies I've never heard of. He was in a few movies in 94. He was in The Stupids in 96.
Wow.
And then
First time that's a name I have not heard for many years.
yeah, he didn't do, you're right. He did not do much in the 90s. He was in Sleepy Hollow, and then we get into Lord of the Rings and the prequels.
Where's Count Odoku?
Yeah, Count Dooku.
Dooku. There you go, Count Dooku. Christopher Lee is in one of my all-time favorite movies, and I just rewatched it twice recently.
Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers?
Yes. No, the original Wicker Man, directed by Robin Hardy and written by Anthony Schaffer.
Oh my God. Yeah.
What
I recently rewatched that.
Oh, really? Which I did not recall how much of a musical it is.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Weird pagan singing.
Quite a bit of the runtime of the movie is musical sequences.
Again, my softiness, man. That movie, the end of that really affected me the last time I watched it.
To me, just what a wonderful, ingenious screenplay, in that it uses our modern mores and values and what we think about people to trick us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to blow, if you've never seen the original The Wicker Man, and especially even if you're familiar with the Nicolas Cage version, do not stop. Go watch The Wicker Man. It's just one of the greatest screenplays, I think, as far as tricking you mysteries.
Yeah, don't watch Midsummer. Watch The Wicker Man.
Midsummer.
Watch the original Midsummer.
Yes, Midsummer ripped off The Wicker Man, but took out the good ideas, or the good story, rather. And the Wicker Man remake took out all of belief in what the original was trying to do. Like, just the idea of a PG-13 remake of The Wicker Man is insane. At least Midsummer was rated R. But I can't tell you what the real thing that they take out that ruins the story is the solving of the mystery.
Yeah.
And so I can't blow that for you, because I would hope anyone who hasn't seen it would go rush out and watch The Wicker Man from 72, maybe 73.
Man, I do want to run back very briefly to when Odysseus sees his ship in the buried by the rocks. This is really worth bringing back. It's one of the funniest goofs I've seen in a movie. So when Odysseus sees the ship buried in, like, he's devastated. He falls to his knees. But when you see, the beach is not a sandy beach, it's a rocky beach. And when you see where he falls, it's two perfectly dug out knee grooves that he falls into.
So from the other takes.
Yeah, which was, well, I mean, yeah, they probably try to take with him bashing his knees into those rocks. Mm-hmm. And he's like, fuck this, dig it out. So yeah, my girlfriend had noticed it. She was like, "Ooh, you see those nice knee grooves there?"
That's funny. That's really funny.
So anybody who watches this, which I would recommend people watch this. I don't know if you would, but I would. There's something fun about it. Once you get through the slog, I think of when you get to this part of it, to me, I was having fun.
I had a real debate about how I felt about this movie. I definitely probably wouldn't say that you need to rush out and watch the Odyssey miniseries. No. I thought that for me as a 40-year-old man, I probably enjoyed the Kirk Douglas 50s version more. But when I really thought about it, I can remember being a boy and them showing us in recess or at some point in school during the rain, part of at least the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Kirk Douglas. And as a 40-year-old man who loves movies, I think those are two beautiful movies, the Ulysses 1954 and whatever year the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea came out, which probably even a better movie. Those are two fantastic family films. But I can remember as a kid really being bored by the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And I think if I showed a kid the 97 or 54 Ulysses versus Odyssey, I think they'd much prefer the 1997 Odyssey. It moves faster. It has way more special effects and wackiness. I mean, if I was a kid, I was thinking maybe like 12 and under, this is a decent movie. I didn't really enjoy it now, but if I was 12 or younger, I might have really liked this.
There is an animated version of this that came out, I think, in the 90s at some point. But I was not aware of the Kirk Douglas version from the 50s.
Yeah, big Dino De Laurentiis. And then the Rossi one is also, the Dino Dino de Laurentiis. From what I've seen, if you really are an Odyssey person, that the first half of that Rossi one is by far the most in-depth and probably effective. And boy, it has some beautiful women.
The French one.
Barbara Bach. Yeah, the French one. Yeah, my
Yeah.
God. And the lady that plays Helen of Troy, and the lady who plays, gosh, another one, whoever Barbara Bach is. Oh my gosh. Some of these women in this Italian one, or rather a French one.
So I'm going to jump back into the plot, Roy. We got a little bit ahead of ourselves, because in between Circe telling Odysseus to go to the underworld and them sailing and arriving at this volcano, which is the entrance where the river Styx is, we do have a moment back in Ithaca with old Tillamook Cheese, who's now in his teens.
Okay, important.
And he's got his father's bow. He doesn't have the beard quite yet, and he's trying to string the bow, but he lacks the strength. He's not ready for it yet. And then the bitter old crank mother shows up again with some more bullshit. And then she basically is so hopeless about her son coming back and so eaten up with grief that she wades out into the ocean and commits suicide.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, important. Also important to note.
That's right. Oh yes, that is very important.
That right during in the sequence is when the suitors begin to show up, and this is so
Penelope's
really
hand in marriage.
Yes,
and the king being king of Ithaca.
Before we see Odysseus really descend into the underworld, we meet Eric Roberts as Eurymachus.
Eurymachus.
Yes, Eurythmics, starring Annie Lennox and that other guy.
I love the Eurythmics.
Yeah, you sure do.
I love Annie Lennox.
You are a big fan of them.
Oh yeah, her voice so pretty. Let me find some good songs for her.
So yeah, we do meet Eric Roberts briefly, because there's a bunch of other guys here in this kind of bum rush to get to her, and we quickly cut away back to Odysseus with his ram that he's going to offer. And he goes and meets Tiresias, played by Christopher Lee, who tells him, "You're a clever man, but not very wise. You don't realize that the journey is in your life, not in the destination."
Yeah.
So it's one of those journey, is not the destination bullshit ass things.
Well, then, not a bad moral, but is that really the moral of the Odyssey?
Not so much.
No, this is not a story about finding out that like your life was really the journey.
No, not at
all.
All he does is pine for home.
And then when he gets there, we'll get there. But yeah, this is not the moral of this story.
No.
Unless you want to look at the fact that if you believe Odysseus was a real man and all of these things happened, the fact that this is the part of his life being told centuries and millennia later.
Yeah.
But as far as for him, no.
So Tiresias then gives him some instructions.
Yes.
And he says, if you want to get back to Ithaca, you're going to have to sail between a monster and a whirlpool.
Scylla and Charybdis.
You're going to be sailing between Scylla and Charybdis, which, I mean, it's so funny. It's like, so Circe, all she knew to tell him was to go to the underworld and ask this guy. She didn't know there's a fucking sea serpent and whirlpool.
Yeah. Some kind of non-functioning Scarlac pit they got going.
This is a very video game side quest version section of the
I know the answer, but isn't it mean of them to rip off Star Wars like this twice? First they stole the Scarlac pit, and then they stole Christopher Lee.
Yeah, well, Christopher Lee, they got to him first, though.
That's not the way I remember it.
I remember it as Coppola probably Lucas probably owed Coppola a lot of shit for helping him out. And Coppola was like, you know what? I'm taking the Sarlacc pit and I'm putting it in my Odyssey.
Don't tell Dino De Laurentiis.
Don't tell DDL.
He's got some kind of Noble House $4 trillion failure he's working on right now. He won't be noticing us. Call Frederick Fuchs.
Yeah, Mr. Fuchs. So he's given these instructions.
Wait, was Frederick Fuchs your buddy or no?
Freddie Fuchs?
He's not related to OKCCC, is he?
No, that would be Gray Fredrickson.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if both of them had some kind of connection, but you're right.
I can see how you could get
that's that. That's why I didn't make a note of it, but I thought I'd go ahead and ask just to make sure.
It's easy to get confused because we nicknamed Gray Fredrickson Freddie Fox. Because he used to hit on all the young college girls.
Oh, wow. No wonder I was confused.
He was a bit of a Lothario.
You created an ultimate confusion there. Gray Frederickson would know a man literally named Freddy Fox.
Gray Frederickson was kind of the Tiresias of my life. When I first met him, he was dangling his feet into a river of magma, and he told me to sail between a sea serpent and a whirlpool, which I didn't understand at the time. Now I get it. He was speaking to me in metaphor, but we don't have to keep talking about that. So
as gives him this advice, but then when Odysseus, he meets all of these spirits of people who are dead in the underworld.
Yes, most notably
one key one. Yes, yeah, most notably his mother, who he didn't even know was dead.
Not his father, though, right, Roy? Where's his father? Never a mention of Odysseus's father. Pretty weird. But he does meet his mother, so this is very sad for him.
Yeah, there were mentions of his father, early in the film, not in this underworld sequence when you would meet dead people. Now,
I don't remember the mentions in the film.
Well, the nursemaid was also his father's nursemaid.
Oh,
or something.
Damn, so she's been around forever.
I think so.
Yeah, this is very sad for him here because he's realizing that his mother's dead,
and she gives him the lowdown.
Yeah, but what she tells him that the suitors are swarming in.
I think so. Does she not?
Yeah, something like that.
Because this is kind of her redemption as a character in a weird way. Like after being so mean throughout the movie,
she gives him some kind of she gives him some kind of key information. I don't really remember.
At least says hi to him.
She at least says hi to him. And now we're really kind of, I would like to say, now we're straight into part 2 of the miniseries.
Okay. And when Eric Roberts showed up, he didn't have any lines, did he?
No, he's just kind of lurking around.
He lurks.
In his
he's lurking.
lascivious way.
Yeah, looking smiley and smug.
Yeah, looking horned
His part was
up.
played by Anthony Quinn in the 54 version.
Oh, nice. Anthony Quinn, who is not Greek.
But was Zorba the Greek?
He played Zorba the Greek, and he played Zampano in La Strada, an Italian man. But do you know his nationality?
No. Irish?
Anthony Quinn is a Mexican man.
Ah.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to hear that. But
it makes, I mean, he does look Latino.
He does, yeah. Just when you see someone whose most famous role is Zorba the Greek.
And his name is not Anthony Gonzalez.
Yeah, Anthony Sanchez. Yeah,
Tony
Sanchez. So, So we're back here with old Tillamook. The beard is not quite there yet, but the suitors are horning in.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a funny thing of like, there's just constant always talk of like, Dad, when's Dad coming home? So at this point, like Telemachus is probably 15 or so, I would say. And there was a funny joke that my GF made where she said, if Dad comes home, does that mean we have to stop fucking? Because he does have a weird relationship with Penelope.
And this is where she tells him what's up, right?
About
the deal she made with Odysseus.
Oh, yeah, probably around this time. The star of our podcast, Mr. Eric Roberts, who plays Eurythmics, is he's still very subdued in these scenes. There's another suitor, I forget the character's name, who's much more loud and boastful. He's kind of taking all the screen time.
Yeah, he kind of has a lot more of a role here than Roberts for a while.
And so Roberts is sort of always lurking in the shadows, kind of a scheming guy. And during these scenes, Eric Roberts' character begins to seduce a handmaiden.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, I was like, I don't know, I had this funny feeling of like the guy, like the Eric Roberts' character really does just want to be her husband.
Yeah. Yeah, he did seem more chill than the other guys for a while, right? Yeah, they almost set it up like Eric Roberts is going to be the classic shapeshifter character in literature, as we would find out in the story, how to write a story things. Like, you think that maybe Eric Roberts is going to turn out to be kind of a good guy.
No, he's very convincing for but a brief moment.
His character, yeah, he's
not as a good guy, but just a guy like, this guy really wants to marry this woman.
Oh, see, I even thought before when he's supposed to be so lascivious and stuff, I was like, hey, you could almost play this as that he's just kind of more chill.
He's chill. There's no question about it. Because the other guys, like the whole thing, and this made me laugh when I was 14 years old. The idea of these guys camped out at this estate for so many years, just drinking wine, having a ball, is so funny to me. Like these suitors.
It's very, you really have to suspend disbelief. It's a fantastic.
Yeah, it's
the story.
So funny.
Yes.
It's like, we're gonna drink all this motherfucker's wine. We're gonna eat all of his food.
Yeah,
we're
that's
just
what they
gonna
decide,
sit
is
here.
that they're just gonna bone Ulysses for as long as he's gone.
It's not really about because there's so many of them. It's not really a question of like which one is.
That's another there's just so many suitors.
Yeah, they're just
gonna
leeches.
all hang out and party for years on Odysseus's dime. They're gonna try to use up all his stuff as kind of a negotiating tactic to wear Penelope down.
Yes.
But there's no real, like, how are they going to decide which one of these? None of them start thinking, is it in this version where the overweight suitor shows up?
Yes.
Are we there yet?
Yeah, right around this time, this guy shows up.
It isn't. Okay, so this guy shows up and Penelope's laughing at he's a real slob guy, and everybody's laughing at his attempts to be the suitor. But it does just kind of once again call to mind, how many guys are there here that are in competition with each other and have nothing better to do than just hang out for years and hope they're the one?
But the slob guy, you must note, like, he brings a bunch of livestock and stuff as tribute.
He at least does bring things, and he gets laughed at. Oh, but they all do bring gifts. That's one of the things, is she has to entertain the gifts.
Yeah.
In this version, she's a much more devout wife. I feel like in other versions of Ulysses, there's more of a push-pull, right? Where she wants Ulysses to come back. She loves Ulysses, but she's not as anti getting married, perhaps it feels like, as in some of these, and in this moment where she laughs at the one guy's things, and it really does feel like she's a part of the party. And I feel like you feel more like that in other versions of the story or something. I remember reading it in ninth grade and not being sure how great I felt about Penelope.
Yeah, maybe I think I remember her fidelity kind of waning
about this. Yeah, is that she's maybe not she never does give in, but she thinks about it.
I almost wish that she would have.
And she doesn't she doesn't put off the suitors at any point except for with the shroud thing.
I just wanted to speak a little bit on the infidelity stuff, in that every time it's set up, it's just that it's like Odysseus has no choice. He's got to cheat. He has no choice but to do it.
There's a real double standard long past this about infidelity, and I think in some cultures it remained today.
Yeah, you kind of just wish, you know what, it would have been more balanced perhaps if Penelope would have gotten hers a little bit while he was gone. But you were going to talk about... It
never made me feel good when he slept with her, with other women.
No.
Yeah, I wanted them both to be steadfast.
Yeah, but he does. He was into it when he was hanging out with Bernadette.
Oh no,
Peters.
That's a big part of the story, is that he likes it. And then there's, I don't know if we have in the second part, if that's something that kind of gets glossed over, I don't think it's Circe, it's another character that when he doesn't remember he almost marries a lady at some point, and then remembers that he remembers his wife. Do we have that whole part in this where he gets the insomnia, or not insomnia? What's the thing? Amnesia. Where he gets amnesia. I don't think he ever gets amnesia in this version.
No.
I think he might start the poem with amnesia in the other Odyssey, or does he?
I don't remember now.
Like when you get to the real in media res stuff and the old, that might be his first adventure in the old one, is where he washes up and has no memory.
Maybe so.
And hangs out with the people.
That's kind of cool.
That's where a bunch of time goes by or something. I can't remember. Yeah, he hangs out and he gets with a lady and that starts providing him with stuff. And they don't believe that he has insomnia in this place where he goes to. And eventually he wakes up, he remembers Penelope, and then bombs out.
But you want to get into the shroud.
Well, that's a key thing, that her big thing she does to put off the suitors is she decides to make this shroud for Odysseus. And when the shroud is, she will not remarry until the shroud is done. Now, I believe that in the poem, or at least in other versions, it pretty much begins with her getting busted for just continually undoing the shroud at night, parts of it, so it never gets done.
Yeah, that's in the beginning.
And so that here, she's just, in this version, she's just starting the shroud at the beginning of part 2, but the poem starts with her getting busted by the suitors.
Yes.
For clowning on the shroud. And that's what sets everything kind of, that's what sets our story in motion.
Yeah, so she makes this vow. She's going to weave a shroud. And if Odysseus doesn't return by the time it's finished, she will choose.
Never mind the beard thing.
Yeah, it's not time for the beard yet. So it's been what, 15 years?
At least. If the Trojan War is 10 and he lost his memory for 5, hell, it could be longer.
15 years and this wimp can't grow a beard.
Oh, shoot, I couldn't.
Yeah, me neither. I'm being hard on old Telemachus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're about 15, 16 years in now. And when we get back with Odysseus and his boys, they're sailing into a cavernous pass where Tiresias had told them to go. So first they are attacked by Scylla. Well, look, Scylla is not Jim Henson's greatest creation.
No, it looks okay we get a lot of schlock filmmaking right here. That it starts off and I was like, oh, this is fun, the Scylla, and then it keeps going. You're like, oh my goodness, this is worse than Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, it's not great at all. It's like Troll 2 caliber special effects.
It's bad.
It's not great, but a lot of guys die here.
Yeah, eats up some dudes.
This is
one of those things where it's like the effects were bad, but I could see if I was a kid, when you like everything, I think this would have been more satisfying if I was a small child. If I was 12 or younger, if I was 10 or younger, I would have thought this was fun.
Kind of riveting. When I remember reading it and being kind of riveted by it.
Oh yeah, it's one of the best parts of the poem. Yeah, you get monsters. They're scary. They are very scary monsters.
Well, they make it through this damn cavern. So the only way out, they go through the only passage out, and it's a big drop into a huge whirlpool / sarlacc pit, which is Charybdis.
But doesn't move. The Charybdis, that's why there's a non-functioning sarlacc pit, because I was like, oh, they couldn't afford to make this thing move around a bit.
Yeah, just a weird
it's just
Venus flytrap whirlpool looking
matte
thing.
Painting or something, or CG. Yeah, it doesn't move.
Horrible, but also horrible for Tiresias to tell him, like, yeah, you got to go this way, certain to your certain death.
Well, you did tell them that. Yeah. And it's scary. That was cool. However, Christopher Lee's eyes looked in the lighting, or if they did something to them. I was telling them that it was a nice, frightening looking guy.
I mean, very unnerving too, that his feet were just dipped in the magma river.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to stay with me for a long time, Roy. But yeah, it's incredible that anyone survives.
Heck, if it's the only way.
I guess it's the only way back to Ithaca. I mean, it's a big fucking ocean, but they don't, this is the only way to go.
Not the way
the boat is destroyed.
I mean, they didn't come through this stuff trying to get when they were lost by the winds.
Exactly.
Apparently it's the only way back.
Yeah. Very video gamey. And the boat is destroyed. The men.
Interior logic was not the Odyssey's long suit.
No.
They had wraparound plots, framing devices, but they did not have interior logic.
But the more and more these guys kept falling into the sarlacc whirlpool, the more I was like, oh man, there's going to be at least like one guy. And I didn't remember him losing every member of his crew. He loses everyone.
Yeah, it's just him.
It's just him. And he falls and manages to find some, would you call it scuttle? A piece of ship wreckage.
Because I think what happens, does the Odyssey a framing device within a framing device? When he gets his memory back, does he tell people all these other adventures he's been on? Because he might, when he washes up and has no memory, I think his whole crew is gone, unless he gets reconnected with them somehow. I can't remember.
That's the end of his crew.
In the movie, but I'm trying to remember if in the poem, when he washes up, he has no crew with the people where he has no memory. Yeah. But it's like, I can't remember if they're a lot, if his crew is living and somewhere else on the island, and he reconnects with them, or if it's all a double framing device.
I don't remember.
I do know that the French one reminded me of some of my, you loved reading Odyssey. I remember being kind of not as into it, because it did just seem like it took forever to get started. And the French one, well, being pretty good, it does take forever to get them on the Odyssey.
Oh yeah, it's very dry and boring. I got to take a quick break. I'll be right back.
Tell me, what keeps your mistress from finishing a tapestry?
Oh, 'tis a secret.
It is a secret.
Okay, kitty, it's podcast time. It's okay.
Hey, kitty cat.
Hello.
There's definitely, you talk about amnesia and being shipwrecked again.
Mm-hmm.
He does. So Odysseus floats up onto Calypso's island, played by Vanessa Williams.
And this, man, she looked good to me. And the main thing I remember about this movie, or I had her appearance in the film bit into the Madeline of remembering how much this was advertised on television, because the weird shot they do with her when he ends up leaving the island, with her really big in the foreground and stuff in the background really small. I'm not sure if it's a process shot or if they're just using the kind of perspective you can get on a beach to make something weird like that, or if they're using special effects I remember it was in the trailer for the miniseries, and I was just like, it's like, man, they used to just run the hell out of these ads. It used to annoy me so much. It's like, we get it, the Odyssey's coming on.
It was a big event. They really tried. Well, they touted it as that.
Yeah.
I needed to be reminded of Vanessa Williams' story. story, which is a good story. Do you
Oh,
remember
that she
anything
was
about it?
Miss America?
Yeah, she was Miss America, and then she posed for Penthouse. Well, she had posed for Penthouse long before.
Or yes, or that there were photos that Penthouse found and ran. Did she actually pose for them? Knowingly pose for Penthouse nudes thing? What happened here? I don't know.
A scandal arose.
Yeah, and she got stripped of her crown.
Let's see here. Yeah, she would be publishing now iconic unauthorized nude photographs of her.
There you go. That's what I thought, is that it wasn't even her idea.
What did they even look like? They're like
man, talk about research I should have done for the show.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, Vanessa
I should have
Williams.
looked at all these photos for at least 5 minutes.
Do you remember the Vanessa Williams song? That was a big hit for a minute.
Oh, I like that song. I haven't listened to it since I was a teenager. I liked it when I was a teenager. I also enjoyed the Arnold movie she was in, or The Eraser. Sometimes the snow comes down in June. Sometimes the earth goes round the moon.
It's probably going to be on this episode. Heads up. Yeah, and they did a parody of it in Living Color, where it's like, really? Why don't you all just kiss my ass? I don't remember who played her in the sketch. Jamie Foxx, probably.
It was a chance for him to show off his singing talent. Talk about a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Master of only playing Jamie Foxx in the movies.
Yeah, so Odysseus ends up back on a nice, sexy time island here with Calypso. And basically,
an impression of Jamie Foxx as Ray Charles?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
I do. It exactly doubles as my impression of Adam Sandler playing the excited Southerner.
Do it.
I could give it up, but you do the heroin, play piano.
Perfect, Roy. Have you ever heard Jamie Foxx's impression of heterosexual? It's pretty good.
I believe he's a bisexual man, is my conspiracy theory. I think he says he's a heterosexual man, but I think that Jamie Foxx is probably a bisexual man.
We here at EsotEric Roberts believe that people can be bisexual.
Oh, yeah.
And we support these people.
I do.
But Odysseus is a red-blooded heterosexual man.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
yeah. Macho Armand Asante. Armand Asante, how do you feel about Armand Asante? We haven't even talked about him.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of save it till the end, but
okay, let's do that. Oh, let's get wet with it now.
I just feel like he's very stiff. I mean, I know Roy, how you feel about when George Clooney plays comedy. It's very annoying
most of the time.
And of course,
I liked him in Intolerable Cruelty.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is a retelling of the Odyssey that's set in the Depression
era.
George
Clooney as Armand Asante.
America. Yeah. And see, I always kind of felt like Odysseus was a little bit of a Bugs Bunny kind of clever manipulator sort of character.
Oh, you're right.
That's why the gods liked him.
You're right. That's a really good read on this. I think that, and Armand Asante is very much in the mold of Kirk Douglas as being just a really lusty, masculine guy.
Yeah, kind of stiff,
like Kirk Douglas, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're saying that George Clooney was more of a Bugs Bunny guy, and I could see that's maybe a more fun read on the character. Not George Clooney, but as more of a Bugs Bunny kind of guy.
Oh, maybe not Homer's read on the character, but mine.
I mean, I don't know, but I don't remember reading it, but I like your read on the character. It seems like it would make a good film.
Yeah, schemer and
clever definitely the scheming is a big part of him.
So yeah, when the scheming comes into play,
even the guy in the French version is a stiff guy.
Yeah, when all that comes into play in this one, it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't feel natural to the type of performance the guy's bringing to it.
Yeah, the way it's written, no, he's not written as much of a scheming guy.
Of course, in Troy, Odysseus is played by Sean Bean.
Yes.
And it's kind of the same deal.
He's more, in Troy, what I saw, he's definitely doing more diplomacy. He's trying to give people advice. They're using him more as a clever guy. Like he is brought in to be the guy. He's brought in more he's used as an arbitrator a lot in Troy from what I saw, which is more in keeping with a guy that is clever.
There is a really cool part. I don't want to spoil Troy for you, but I'm going to just spoil a moment for you where Odysseus is, he's in an encampment of soldiers, and one of them is carving a little horse out of wood in And Odysseus says, "That's nice. I like that. What is that?" He says, I'm going to send it. It's for my boy. I'm going to give it to my boy when I get back home. And that's what gives him the idea for the Trojan horse. So there is that little glimmer.
Their Odysseus and Sean Bean is much more guy you could imagine thinking of the Trojan horse than Armand Assante here, or Ulysses and Kirk Douglas. These are characters that feel more or less like they're just whatever it comes to them is going to be the answer in the movie. It's one of the reasons they're not. I mean, at least this one is not a more engaging character, really. There's no consistency.
Yeah, I just don't feel much for Mr. Assante.
He's just an icon or whatever.
Yeah. Is he an icon?
Well, not in the way we think of people as being iconic. I meant he's his character. He's more of an archetype or whatever, avatar or something. I don't know. Like an icon that's just moved around.
I get
chessboard of the plot of the movie.
Have you seen the John Gotti movie that he was in? That he got an Emmy for it, right?
Yes, I have. I've seen it twice.
How is he?
I think he gives a typical. He plays the same. Armand Assante's acting to me is the same in every movie I've seen him in. I've not seen Belisar the Cajun. It was a tough movie to find at the time when I was trying to find it. I didn't look for it this week. I must have focused on watching Odyssey things.
I have no idea what that is.
It's an 80s movie that I think it's an 80s indie movie. Some people told me about one night. That's about Cajun culture and maybe set in like the 19th century or 18th century. I don't know, but it's maybe an old timey Cajuns movie from like 1987 or something. And it stars Armand Assante as the main Cajun, Belisar. And it's, I don't know,
maybe Jamie Foxx, Southern,
maybe
Adam Sandler,
maybe. But I don't know. I haven't even seen I don't think I've even watched the trailer for it.
Damn.
But I've never seen. I'll see if I can track it down now. It might just be one of those things that's free on YouTube now. It wasn't then. But at any rate, I feel like he acts the same in every movie. I was looking at his career, and it kind of feels like he was the guy who was. To me, he reads like in the way that Geraldine Chaplin is the Charlie Chaplin of sound acting, as Charlie Chaplin was also the Charlie Chaplin of sound acting. I think that he was kind of the Lee Van Cleef of Italian American actors in the Italian American boom. It feels like he was kind of third saddle from the left in some Stallone movies in the 70s, and John Travolta, like in the 70s, all of a sudden there was this boom of just all the leading men were Italian American-y.
Oh yeah.
It feels like going into the 80s, most of the new ones they minted weren't Italian American, but imitated the Italian American stars from the 70s. And Armand Assante,
even Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts.
Exactly who I'm saying. That's exactly who I'm meaning. Is that these Mickey Rourke and Eric Roberts are guys that feel like they're not Italian American, but they were just imitating the Italian American actors.
Yes, they were part of the great appropriation boom that happened.
Yeah, but I feel like Assante he was third saddle from the left in some other Italian American acting guys' movies, and then he suddenly out of nowhere gets the leading role and I think he was on a soap opera for a long time, but he gets a leading role in the Mickey Spillane's I, the Jury as Mike Hammer, and I want to see that, but I don't even know if that was a big thing. But all of a sudden it was a leading man role out of nowhere, it feels like, for him, and ever since then he kind of had a more elevated career the way Lee Van Cleef had, for a few dollars more out of nowhere, and then he became he's a kind of a similar actor to Eric Roberts, but maybe has become more respected because he has more of a gravitas. I don't know, but at any rate, I like the Gotti movie. It's very silly. It feels not like it's probably historically accurate at all. I don't know the story, how it really went, but the HBO Gotti TV movie is a B gangster movie. It's a silly B gangster movie, but I like it. It's a fun one, I think. And his performance isn't as a typical Armand Assante performance. It's fine.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it's silly. It's unessential, but I love gangster movies, and to me, it was a fun one. It's much better than the John Travolta Gotti movie, which is just insane.
I was wondering if you thought over the course of watching this, what the Odyssey would have been like if Eric Roberts had played Odysseus.
I did. It would have been a lot louder, and from him.
Yeah, he would have had a lot of fun with the adulteress.
Very strange. Oh yeah. He would have been
the sexy scenes would have been
Eric
fun.
Roberts is more to your liking, as far as how Eric Roberts would be more like how you want it, less of a stiff action man just moved around. Eric Roberts would really try to get into those moments of being schemy and thinky and considering things. He would be doing a lot with his face, thinking and probably trying to add in dialogue to talk more. But you're right, it may have been a better movie. It would have been even sillier. Armand Assante feels pretty silly in this part, but I think Roberts would have been even sillier, but maybe maybe in a good way. He might have been better for this.
Well, this was mentioned way back in the inaugural episode, the Pope of Greenwich Village episode, that Eric Roberts resembles a Greek statue.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you're right. And
he looks like David.
Yeah, you're right.
Italian so he would have been. He would have looked the part, and yeah, his sneakiness would have been fun.
Yeah, he would have played it more of a sneaky schemer, even if it wasn't in the script as much as I don't think it was. I think it would have been naturally come to him to do it that way. His way of playing, because even his way of playing this role in this, we'll get to when he starts talking, I suppose. We'll get to that. But yeah, I kind of like your idea. How do you think it would have been?
It would have been pretty fun.
I think it would have been more fun.
Yeah.
I got to say, I think
would have been more fairy tale theater for sure.
Or just crazier.
Yeah.
I would have injected more life into the part. It could have used it. We would have complained and said somebody else, we would watch it and be like, this sucked. But in the truth, it would have been better than the version we actually watched, I think.
But alas, he is Eurythmics in this film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he does a good Annie Lennox impersonation. And
he makes some odd choices coming up.
Well, let's get into that. So Odysseus is trapped on Calypso's island. Just basically like he's back in this like never-ending bath time, sexy time.
Yeah, it's an
island of girls, and they're all so excited and giggly when they see a man for the first time. And Vanessa Williams.
One of the differences between a drama and an epic, as David Mamet would say, in the drama we would never have this. There would never be multiple parts of where he has a very similar adventure, where he's laid out hanging out with a chick for years on end. It seems like this would never happen. But this in an epic and even in a novel, you can get away with this. But you don't in a properly constructed drama. This is death.
Yeah.
And it's kind of death here. It's like for as hard as
because they're trying to dramatize an epic.
Yeah. And as far as Vanessa Williams is so hot, none of this has any steam. We know we're going to get past it and there's no monster.
Yes.
It may have been something if they put this early in the film.
We know he's getting back. So it's like
it's a terrible
there's no tension.
Where you get to see some gorgeous Vanessa Williams.
Yeah. And you just get to see Armand Assante just taking more baths.
And there are scenes in this where he plays his performance is strange. I'm going to say it's because sometimes like when it calls on him all of a sudden when he has the upper hand, he's very like a mafia boss all of a sudden be like, oh, why do you talk to me like that now? Like when Vanessa Williams decides she's not in love, it's like, oh, yesterday you were so in love with me. And now like it's very weird. He's not right for this.
I appreciated how they really tried to distinguish the islands in different ways. And this island is very crazy. It's all these like natural spring, it's hot springs.
Yeah. Oh, they have those cool. Is this the island where they have
very
those cool
white? Everything's
pools? Salty
and white.
Where did they shoot this? This looks like wherever they shot this looked like a gorgeous place to go visit. Wow.
Well, I know for sure they shot the majority of the film in Malta in Spain.
I need to go there.
Yeah, we need to get there, Roy.
Yeah, we
should take a trip there.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, man. I've always been attracted to the Mediterranean. I feel like there's something about Greece and that area, all those islands out there. It's pretty nice.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Got to get out there at some point. But who knows where the hell they even shot this part? I don't know. It's very pretty. I know that. And it's very non-dramatic because we know exactly what's going to happen. And there is a moment where he sees a boat and he tries to swim out to it. And Calypso drags him back and tells him like, basically you're my sex slave and you have to forget Ithaca. You're here with me forever. He tells her that's never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
Yeah, there's a little.
You think I would leave my son and my wife for you, bitch? It's never gonna happen.
Hey, you think I'm gonna take a bath here every day? Huh? You think I'm gonna take a bath? We cut away back to.
I got salt fields.
I got fields of salt. I got a 10. We go back to Ithaca he's here for so long that we have to cut away. It's so funny because it's so like boring that we just got to go back to Ithaca.
Yeah, at this point we're glad. This is more fun and it's very crazy. This is where we finally get Eric Roberts talking, right?
Yeah, and we have old Tillamook Cheese here, and he's continually trying to string his father's bow, and he can't do it. And he's very angsty now because he's probably like in the height of his teenage years, and he's very, very angry at the idea of his mother remarrying, and she's been working on this shroud forever. So now he starts to do this thing. he holds an assembly with the suitors. And the first thing he does, what happens here? He has a big assembly, and the old wise men say that Penelope has to stop working on the shroud forever. She's got to make a decision. Telemachus announces that if this is going to happen, I'm going to sail away and find my father.
And that's pretty much the beginning of the original Odyssey.
Yeah, this is where the poem begins, really, is Telemachus going off on this journey. Long after this war in Troy has happened, he's going to figure out what's happened to his dad. And he sails away. And right before he sails away, Athena, the goddess, appears to him. So Rosalina comes back and tells him that you need to go to Sparta. Speak to the king in Sparta.
Is she the only god that has multiple scenes? Other than
No, Hermes.
Okay. Hermes comes back. Okay.
Yeah, Hermes and Poseidon, but Poseidon is never depicted as
Who played Hermes? Frederick Stewart. He was Paris also. Oh, he was Paris in a Romeo and Juliet TV thing from 1994. The Odyssey is still one of his top 4 credits, but he still acts a lot. He works a lot. So
wasn't Milo Yiannopoulos that played Hermes?
Nah, dog. It was Frederick Stewart.
I thought it was Yiannopoulos. Yeah, Frederick Stewart does show back up here on Calypso's island.
I believe it was Steve Polychronopoulos.
Steve Polychronopoulos is the one who shows back up and tells Calypso that you can't keep Odysseus here, and that if you keep him here, Poseidon's going to sink your island. You remember this?
Yeah.
Hermes shows back up and he's like, look, you've been keeping this guy here as a sex slave, bathing him for years. You got to let him go.
Is this part where Eric Roberts is just like, well, if that's what's going to happen, then I'm just going to do. And he has this crazy line. We'll have to get I think he has so little dialogue in this. We could probably put all of it on the podcast. Yeah. But his speech when he just decides to start getting crazy, it's like his performance is very weird.
Well, it takes him forever to start getting Robertsy.
Yeah, and he does, but he does.
He does. But I don't remember this around the time that Telemachus leaves. I don't have any notes on it.
I just remember there are just a few parts where Roberts finally gets to talk. Maybe we're not even there yet.
We're getting close. The Calypso stuff is so boring, but basically she has no choice but to let Odysseus go and tells him that I have a big store of wood. You have to make a raft and get out of here. Well, he tells her in the miniseries, he's like, I'm going to make a raft. And she's like, okay, well, I have all this wood. Or he says a ship. I'm sorry. I ruined the joke because he's like, I will build a ship. And he builds the shittiest raft ever. I mean, it's horrible. It's like, it's worse than like Tom Hanks's raft in Castaway. It's so bad. But he gets on it and he leaves Calypso's island, after Hermes tells her that she has no choice but to let him go. And then, Telemachus is sailing away to go to Sparta to figure shit out. And Penelope is almost finished with the shroud. But of course, we know you already spoiled it. Thanks a lot, Roy. We know what's going on with that shroud.
Okay.
If you would have read the poem, you would have known anyways. This is when old Eurythmics Roberts super starts to get into the role and starts talking a bunch. This is when he's flirting with the housemaid in exchange for information. He's really trying to horn his way in on Penelope. So right around this time is when he catches Penelope has been doing this thing where she's unweaving the shroud every day. He catches her, and you do the impression much better than I do.
No, go for it. Because I can't remember what he says.
Well, I don't remember either, but it's just something like,
we'll just have to include it.
Well, I see that you have not been finishing. Something like that. And he comes up to her.
All of his line deliveries in this were hilarious.
They're very hilarious. But he really sells her on this idea of like these other guys, these suitors are here for her fortune, but he wants her. And strangely, like, I believe
it was kind of effective.
It's so effective when I'm like, he does. Like, this dude, like, he wants to hook up with this woman. But although, I mean, he has been flirting with his handmaiden. But
and I'd kind of maybe like, it's sad to say because he's in so few scenes in the movie, but the movie zoned me out for so much. I didn't remember the handmaiden from before this. I only remember after this.
Oh yeah, he's been kind of working his way in with her for a minute. And then when he finds out about the tapestry widow shroud thing, he kind of instantly rats her out. Like he has a moment where he's like, I'm on your side. And then he just tells everyone about it and they burn it. Like they wrest it away from her and they throw it on the fire and she's sad about it. And he's like, now you have to make a decision. So back back in Odysseus's story, his raft is done. Calypso, Vanessa Williams, tells him this thing where she's like, do you really want to go back to your wife? You know, she's 16 years older now. And I thought that was kind of a funny moment. She doesn't, of course, she doesn't age. She's a god or goddess. And he says something sweet where he's like, I've also aged 16 years, blah, blah, blah. And he gets on the raft. He goes out to sea. A lot of stuff starts happening now. Telemachus arrives in Sparta. He meets the old king Menelaus, who tells him, you know, I haven't seen Odysseus since the war. The guy's got to be dead. No one's seen him. No one that I know has seen him. So it kind of convinces Telemachus, like, look, it's over. My father's not coming home. He's dead. Back in Odysseus's story, there's a massive sea storm. His raft is torn apart. This is where he has his moment with Poseidon, where he starts to scream out at him.
Wait, was Menelaus the king? Yeah, I guess you're right.
Menelaus is the king of
Troy for
Sparta.
Me, Odyssey.
Yeah, sorry, I spoiled Troy for you.
Well, so unlike my multiple, that's what I was thinking about before. I was like, wait a second. In that French version, I don't remember this that much from this version, even though I just watched it twice. I remember more from the French version, and because it makes more of an impression, but because I think Helen is played by a really hot lady. And so.
Well, did I say Troy?
No. You said Sparta. But
okay.
I did not remember Menelaus, I did not remember who the king was with Helen. And so it's a real spoiler on what happens at the end of Troy now to me, which the movie itself should have spoiled to me, but thanks a lot to you.
Did you look at many maps when you were watching any of this stuff to try and figure out what the hell was going on?
No, I didn't.
Well, Troy is in Turkey.
I think that there was a map at the beginning of the French
Troy.
one. Yeah, they say that. So Troy's in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And where's that?
It's to the east of Greece, across the Aegean Sea.
Okay.
But there's the very far. So Athens is like central Greece, and then to the far south of that peninsula would be where Troy was, and then, Sparta.
Oh, okay.
And then Sparta's attached to the mainland, and then off of the coast, somewhere on an island on the east side, is Ithaca, which was Odysseus was the king of Ithaca.
Yeah.
So I was trying to get it kind of a sense of the geography, and it's really not that big of a sea, so it's hilarious that he was trapped out there.
So he wasn't that far apart. So you would say that Sparta was way farther from Troy than Ithaca.
No, it would be further from Ithaca, but not that far, really. Let's see. I mean, everything's probably a month away. I don't know, to be honest. Back then, who knows how long the hell anything took.
And them slow boats.
But yeah, so in this scene, Odysseus is like, Poseidon, why are you doing this to me? And Poseidon is like, he wants him to suffer.
Like, well, I'm not trying to kill you. It's just all your men.
Exactly. I just want to kill all your men in the crazy whirlpool, low budget whirlpool. But he wants him to understand. He says that without gods, man is nothing. So he keeps him alive. And Odysseus survives, and he washes up on another bullshit ass place. This is like, I think more on the mainland of of Greece. And this
One note on King Priam.
Yeah.
Is not where we get the expression priapism.
What does that mean?
That's when you have a boner for too long. And like,
really?
Yeah, you have or something, I think, right? When you have the boner for too long, they call that a priapism. And priapism is from the Greek, though. But it's not King Priam. It's named after it is the god Priapos, which was the god of fertility, or like male virility and fertility. So maybe King Priam's name was a reference to Priapus, but I don't know. But Priapus is where we get priapism, and I guess the Greeks would call it priapism like something lewd or something, like a public boner.
My man's got a hard priapus.
Priapism, yeah, it's when you have that boner from your Viagra that lasts over 4 hours, and you have to go to the doctor like they tell you in the commercial. That's get yourself priapism going.
A lot of painful throbbing, I imagine. Ouch.
Painful anytime I get a boner.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, Roy. This section of the story here in Phaeacia, they call it. I kind of glossed over this stuff here. This is where the poem begins here.
That's what I was trying to say.
Landing in Phaeacia.
Yeah, that's why I think that this poem was a story within a story, like within a
of
story.
him trying to recount. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember. I think this is the first place he shows up, and this is where he like it doesn't have a memory in the old story.
Yeah. So here the kings eventually they recognize who he is. So they sail him back to Ithaca. And he's so
in the part with the Polyphemus, does he do the "my name is nobody" thing?
in what?
When he hangs out with the Cyclops, does he tell him his name is nobody?
Yes.
Okay, my bad.
In this one, yeah. Nobody is hurting me. It's a classic pedophile move right there. You tell the child that your name's nobody. Works every time.
Good him using his brain though.
Yeah.
Ahead.
Yeah, there's a brief
The
episode
Polyphemus
here.
would never think to say, "This guy, his name was nobody. He's small.
He's molesting me. His name's nobody." The kid's fine. He's just crying wolf. Yeah, these guys sell Odysseus back to Ithaca, but he's so tired and so just like exhausted and wore out from all this that he basically is like asleep for the whole trip, and he wakes up on the shore. You remember this? He wakes up on the shores of Ithaca.
Yes.
And he wanders back up to the stable where his son Telemachus was born. He meets the old servant, excuse me. Do you remember the servant's name? The old guy?
Well, is it the old servant, or is he like an old maybe a bard?
No, I thought he was like one of his servants.
Isn't there a character that kind of feels like it's Homer in the poem, and he's in the other versions? Maybe it's this guy.
Yeah,
like
in the
old guy.
the 60s Odyssey, there's a bard.
I think that's in the story too.
Probably, but not in this. Not in this one.
No. I think I think that's in the poem. That's one of the things I remember about the poem was like it seemed like that guy was going to matter more.
But this guy from the TV miniseries, the old servant with the joint pain. Do you remember his character's name?
No.
Arthritis.
Yes.
Sorry, but and the old servant, he meets him. It's been 20 years, so a lot of time has passed.
Yeah,
but
time to get a beard going.
Yeah, all of a sudden Armand Assante has a white beard. Like they wait till the last second to give him a crazy gray white beard. Pretty funny. But now Telemachus does have the chin beard, and he's been gone for an entire year trying to track down his father. He went to Sparta and pretty much has decided after that journey that his father is dead. He comes back, and like right as he comes back, he runs into Odysseus. So the timing is perfect. And yeah, it requires a little bit of convincing. He's not convinced that it's his dad.
Because you got to remember, if you remember the movie, at this point, just to recap for the audience, that Odysseus left when Telemachus was just a little boy.
He was a baby.
Yeah. The day he was born, he got cold. It's like he has no idea. And this is the time before photography.
Yes, but arthritis recognizes him.
Sure.
So it's arthritis.
Yeah, so
testimony.
you can imagine it could take a little convincing that it was your dad.
So now there's some scheming. Now it's Odysseus is back in his main mode of like, now I got to scheme how to figure this out, because his house is just beset by suitors. He can't just go in there by himself.
At what point is King Alcinous the guy who he runs into right before he goes to Ithaca? In this part we just glossed over. Was that another part? I forgot. We never mentioned that Jeroen Krabbe is in the movie
as King Alcinous.
Yeah,
I don't remember this.
I don't remember.
Fuck it. It's a long movie, man.
Yeah, we lost Jeroen Krabbe.
Sorry.
Way back there in the Odyssey somewhere.
We'll figure it out. We'll get you back on somehow, brother. Yeah, he's got to figure out how to get in past these suitors. Well, Athena reappears and visits Odysseus and transforms him into an old bum.
Yes,
and it's good. It actually is some of the
pretty
best
good
visual
effects. This is our best of the makeup effects. Yeah, far outstrip Jim Henson's work.
It's very good. I made a note, Roy, and I said the cinematic bum Carmen Philippi would have been proud.
Oh yeah, you're right. He did a good job.
He did a good job. So there's this long 5-year party of these suitors being here for so long, and the bum shows up with Telemachus, and the suitors are rude to Telemachus. It's in this section here that Roberts is really starting to kind of come to the forefront forefront as the main scheming villain. And there's a lot of I made a note here about the gnarly ass broken ring finger that Eric Roberts has.
I didn't notice it.
It's very prominent in this one. I've seen it in the other films that we've talked about, but I don't know, for some reason in this one,
Wow.
really stuck out to me. It's on his left hand and must have come from that really bad car accident that he was in the 80s.
I'll look for that.
But right in this time, so Odysseus is back. He's disguised. Telemachus sets up this thing where he's going to agree to fight the suitor Antinous. Is that who you were talking about? Who's the actor you were talking about?
Jerwin Crabbe? No, he was King Alcinous.
Oh, okay. No, this is a suitor named Antinous, played by Vincenzo Nicoli. And he was very memorable in this as Antinous. He's the very loud, boastful suitor.
Yes.
And he's going to fight Telemachus. So they have their fight, and Telemachus pretty much gets like beaten down. Do you remember how this part of the story goes?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It all builds to Odysseus revealing himself with shooting the bow and arrow.
Yeah, there's a boring fight.
Hilts or something.
Yeah, there's a boring fight where there's a competition and Telemachus gets beat up, but he shows restraint. That was the important thing. He shows like some kind of restraint and loses the fight, because the whole point of this fight was if he wasn't going to back down, Eric Roberts had this scheme that he was going to have Antinous kill Telemachus with a sword. There's some kind of scheme here.
That's right.
But Telemachus he has his father's cleverness. He doesn't fall for it.
That's right.
So around this time, as the bomb, Odysseus meets Geraldine Chaplin's character, Euryclea, again, the maid who raised him.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an interesting note here, which I thought was kind of cool. So Euryclea means broad fame, while Anticlea means anti-fame.
Yeah.
And Anticlea is the name of the mother of Odysseus.
Oh, wow.
So it says here the tension between the meaning of Euryclea's name and Anticlea's name reflected the tension between the two pillars of Odysseus's life.
That really makes a lot of sense with the story.
Yeah, he was born to Anticlea.
So basically, their names are faithless and faithful.
Yeah, a noble woman, but was nursed and essentially raised by Euryclea, a lower class maid.
Mm-hmm. And will the two characters be faithful or faithless to each other is, of course, the major thing of the story.
Yeah.
And in some people's cultures, you could say the Odysseus was faithful simply by returning when he did not need to. But we could argue, in my morality, I would say he was unfaithful.
He had to do it to stay alive, bro.
Maybe.
The
Circe one, we can maybe forgive him.
Yeah, the Calypso one was just he was having some fun. He was having some strange.
Saw him, Vanessa Williams, and I mean, we could say we could forgive him, but it's a sin.
Yeah, I forgive him. So the last contest here, after this little side competition thing that Telemachus sets up, is whoever can string my father's bow is going to be allowed to marry my mother. I think it's set up by Telemachus.
I've never been able to do it.
Yeah, so here we go with all these guys coming in, trying to do the bow thing. This old bum is hanging around. Who's this guy?
Yeah, why is he here?
Yeah, who's this guy?
Who invited him to our rich guy party?
Hey, who's this guy? And then, as nobody can do it. Of course, Eric Roberts' character gets very close to doing it, which is a bit of fun, but he doesn't do it. And the bum steps up and does it and reveals himself to be Odysseus. And then he just goes about slaughtering all of these guys with the bow.
Yes.
And Telemachus helps him.
That's right. This was fun in the poem. You really waited a long time for this. Like it really drew it out.
Yeah. So Eric Roberts' character.
Getting to it, rather.
I've called him Eurythmic so many times that now I forget his character's actual name.
It was Eurymachus.
Yeah, Eurymachus.
Eurymachus, there you go.
He's scheming throughout this whole thing, trying to figure out a way to defeat Odysseus with the bow. He flings an axe at him. He's hiding behind pillars. He rushes to a door. He's beating on the door. He's shouting for the handmaid.
There's a part where he says, I made a note of a line when Odysseus reveals himself. He's the old man. And they said, nobody can string this up. He's like, how about a man who's dead? And then I thought, what if he said, how about a man who's dead from the waist down?
Nice. So yeah, Eurythmics is beating on the door and just shouting for the handmaiden that he's been seducing the whole time. And she opens the door, and Odysseus yanks an arrow out of a guy he's already shot, which is pretty nice. It's like a nice it's an arrow with a bunch of gore on it. You remember this? That's one he's already fired, and he refires it, and it goes through Eric Roberts and then through the handmaiden or the housemaiden, whoever that would be.
Helped him.
Kills both of them.
That's in the poem.
Pretty cool. Is it?
I believe so. I remember in the poem an arrow goes through multiple people, I think.
Oh, nice.
Not being only like 2 people got killed.
Yeah, very cool. He kills everybody with
they slaughter.
Help from Telemachus. And then I kind of have run out of notes here. He reveals he reveals himself to pretty much everybody, and then he does Penelope last, who kind of faints when she sees him, if I remember right. And all this tree imagery of that tree in that room, he reveals himself to her in front of that tree again, and all this stuff. And they have sex, Roy. It's been 20 years, and the day that he reveals himself to her, they have some sex, and they're laying in bed afterwards. Do you remember it this way?
Or they smoked some lotus after.
Yeah, I guess it just kind of ends like he's back.
Yeah, it's over.
And that's it.
They killed off Roberts. That was it.
They killed off Roberts, and that's when I lost interest.
They had 2. I did have 2 actual notes. I forgot for that. I should have brought up at the beginning. Is the one that I heard once again from Murray that maybe the grease and cellophane was to keep them warm.
What?
I think apparently that's been done in other movies, that grease has been used to keep people's bodies warm.
Oh, it wasn't to slide through stuff.
No, it was maybe to stay warm.
I see. Yeah, misdirection.
Also, I saw the movie Desert Bloom, which was the movie that John Voight did after Runaway Train and then did no more 80s movies.
Yeah.
Wow. It's the coming of age story of a girl in 1940s post-war Nevada, Las Vegas area. And John Voight plays her stepfather, who is a veteran of maybe World War I or something, and has PTSD real bad and is a drunk. It's like a super depressing slice of life story. Well, it's somewhat hopeful, but at some point I thought John Voight's character was going to blow his brains out on the front porch with a shotgun while his wife was playing singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow on the piano inside. I was like, oh my gosh. Thankfully that didn't happen. One thing in that movie was that they had the guy that plays the boyfriend in Uncle Buck, Bug or whatever his name is.
Yeah. The boy who could fly.
Yes, and he was also Johnny Storm in the 1990s Fantastic Four film, which is fantastic.
Nice.
So I wanted to ask you if you could tell me your thoughts on Uncle Buck.
Well, I'm going to have to take a quick break, and then I will tell you my thoughts on it.
Okay.
So it is true. Oh, I do not mean to frighten you to enter your room, but I had to see. Oh, my.
Leave me.
It has been too long since you felt a man's touch. 16 years.
Long.
Take mine in the siege tonight. These other men, they come for your fortune. I come for you.
You were talking about a film called Desert Bloom?
Yes.
From 1986.
Yeah.
Starring Jay Underwood.
Yes.
Jay Underwood, who would go on to star in The Boy Who Could Fly.
Never saw it.
Oh, it was a childhood favorite of mine. Not Quite Human, which is a TV, like a Disney made-for-TV movie. You remember this?
No.
Oh, Jay Underwood played a robot boy.
Nice. So he could both fly and was a robot.
Yeah, and I believe his father was Alan Thicke. Yes, his father was Alan Thicke.
Sorry about that, Ricardo.
Sorry, Ricardo. Yeah, he was in some stuff, but most notably probably in Not Quite Human and The Boy Who Could Fly and Uncle Buck as Bug. How do you feel about Uncle Buck?
That's why I asked you. How do you feel about Uncle Buck?
You know what's funny is looking at Uncle Buck, I'm remembering that they did make Uncle Buck into a TV spin-off series in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
With some forgettable plus-sized man.
Not Mark Sasso,
that was
Patty.
well, it was not John Candy. However, Roy, they tried to do an Uncle Buck TV show in 2016 that was a bit race role reversed with Mike Epps as Uncle Buck.
Oh, that doesn't sound like, I don't want to see that.
Well, it exists.
I kind of remember now. It's like, yeah, it's like nothing against Mike Epps. That just feels like bad casting though.
Yeah, crazy to think. But I'm a huge fan of the movie. In fact, I
like Mike Epps. I just feel like that bad casting.
Well, it's no edgy take in the year 2021 to be a fan of John Hughes, but I'm a big John Hughes fan. Will remain a John Hughes fan. Uncle Buck is his best film. I don't know if you would agree with me on that.
I'm going to give you 100% disagree. I think Uncle Buck is a thumbs down movie.
Damn.
And I was watching a movie I thought was way better the other day called Problem Child.
Yeah, but that's not a film by.
No.
Damn, Problem Child is better than Uncle Buck.
Well, I was watching Problem Child. I was like, this movie feels like a better movie to me. I thought about how it's like a wacky, silly physical comedy movie, but I was like, everything feels kind of bland and like it really feels slick how the story runs along. Like you really feel a sense of propulsion. And Uncle Buck feels like it was made in like a weekend or something. It's like apparently, you know, that we're not apparently, but Macaulay Culkin once said that Uncle Buck went like over a weekend while working on Uncle Buck. John Hughes wrote Home Alone for Macaulay Culkin because people, if they don't remember, Uncle Buck was where Macaulay Culkin had his breakout.
Right.
And to me, Uncle Buck feels like the movie that was written in a weekend. It just feels like gags are kind of half finished, thrown together. It has its moments. I'd say it's not like a mild thumbs down movie for me.
Yeah.
I only brought it up because I know you love it. I
love it, but I do have to be honest with myself. Bueller is the more well-made film. It's the best Hughes film probably. But I've
seen a lot of them.
I like John Candy, so.
Oh, me too.
I just think that he shines in it. Not as much as Jay Underwood as Bug.
His Bug. No, he's pretty memorable as Bug. When I saw him in Desert Bloom, I was like, oh, that's that guy from Uncle Buck.
Bug. It should have been called Uncle Bug.
Yeah.
We should do a spin-off.
Russell's Ward.
Well, let's get into our final closing notes for the Odyssey.
Okay, I've got no more notes on this movie.
Okay.
Do you have anything?
I just wanted to say, as far as like it came out in 97. Eric Roberts had a massive year in 96 with all those movies we talked about in the last episode. He was in 12 acting credits in 96.
Yeah, 12 acting credits in 96. And
he was only in 6 in 97.
Wow, what a slacker.
3 film roles and 3 television roles. He was in like an episode of Oz. I almost want to do, I wonder if we could do an episode over the episode of Oz that Eric Roberts is in.
I've never seen an episode of Oz, so it'll be
Me neither.
I'll see if I can find it. But our next episode, I don't know. Do you have more on 1997? I'm sorry.
No, he was in 3 other movies that I've never heard of.
Oh, what are they?
The Shadow Men.
Nothing.
Most Wanted.
Nope.
And TNT.
Most Wanted feels like, who's in Most Wanted?
I don't know. I don't have it at my disposal right now.
Fair. Our next movie will be none of those.
He was in an episode of Frasier.
I used to watch Frasier. I've probably seen that episode, unless it was like right at the end of Frasier.
So what are we going to talk about next, Roy?
Ape versus Monster.
What year is that from?
2021.
Ooh, damn. Am I going to have to go to the theater to watch it?
Oh, I'm sure you will.
How are we going to do this?
You're going to have to pay $20 to go see Ape versus Monster first run.
Are you telling me I'm going to have to risk getting COVID-19?
We're going to be adventuresome for this one. I'll tell you what. You risked certain death, and I will pay for your ticket. I'll pay for you and your girlfriend's tickets to go see Ape versus Monster.
You, sir. Let's do it.
Yes.
Here's the last note that
But not your children. You have to find a babysitter or pay for your children.
Okay.
Because I told you.
I'll have my in-laws watch after my 12 children. Did you know I had 12 children, Roy?
I stopped counting after one.
Each one is its own tribe.
Ah.
Yeah.
The last 2 by your girlfriend, the others by her handmaidens.
Oh, I had a bunch of bad jokes that I came up with. I had the diabetes. But here's the other really bad joke I came up with for this episode. What do you call a guy who sexually abuses a food connoisseur? Gourmand assault. So also in I
I
was gonna
like it.
I was gonna say also in '97, the year that this came out, we saw Disney's Hercules.
Oh yeah. With James Woods as Hades. I was thinking about watching that recently. I think I might even started it and just been like, you know what, I'm not in the mood for a cartoon right now.
No, yeah, I've tried various times to really get into that and just
Okay, just
can't.
not. I saw it at the theater. Don't remember really getting into it.
This is also in the period though where we had Kevin Sorbo's Hercules,
Sure.
the legendary journeys coming
You never
on,
watched any of that. Of
and
course,
then
I
you
approve
have
of
Xena
everything
Warrior
Kevin Sorbo
Princess.
does. That's it.
So there's a
I
lot
never
of
saw Xena either.
a lot of this stuff kind of floating around during this time period, I suppose. But yeah, that's about all I got. Armand Asante went on to win an Emmy.
He did?
Yeah, for Gotti, right?
Oh, he won it for Gotti. I can't imagine him. What did this get nominated for?
Probably nothing. I don't see anything.
I'll bet it. Nothing.
Do the Emmys have like visual effects? I don't think they
I
do
don't think
stuff
they do.
like that.
So this was nominated for no Emmys after all of its promotion.
Oh,
So I feel like the Emmys, much like the Oscars, there's a lot of politics going on. Won 2 Emmys.
Okay.
It was the winner for outstanding. Andre Kochalewski won Best Director for a miniseries or a special, and Philip McGee won Best Outstanding Visual Effects for episode 2.
So they do have visual effects. All right.
And then it won.
Proven wrong twice.
Wow, I'd like to see what it was nominated again.
It says here that Armand Asante was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a miniseries or television film for Odysseus. Somewhat cool.
Oh, you know what it was nominated for? It was nominated for Outstanding Hairstyling.
Damn.
Lost. It was also nominated for Outstanding Miniseries and lost. And it was Outstanding Art Direction nominated and lost. I felt the art direction in this film was pretty fun in some parts, like the Hades. So I would say that the art direction would reflect more on like that cool Bernadette Peters world. Although maybe you got into some visual effects there too and stuff. But yeah, it feels like that's more your art direction. That's pretty fun. I can see it being nominated for that.
Well, a common
nomination for Jim Henson, who's dead.
Bless his heart.
I think one of the main lessons you learned from this was don't work with Jim Henson for special effects. This was like this was the peak of practical effects in the movies right before we totally started going too much to computers, kind of on the border of that, and that didn't look good. So this would have been like peak time to make this look good, and it looks like shit. So Jim Henson was doing Jim Henson Studios, dating really back to the 80s. They were doing kind of subpar work and getting away with it because they were somewhat endearing. You could recognize it as Jim Henson's work. It had a personality.
Yeah, they should have stuck with the personality.
As what other people were doing. If you just wanted to go for pure, does this look good?
Yes. They tried to go the Industrial Light and Magic route with trying to be like crazy visual effects, and it's not good. They should have stuck with cartoonish puppets. It's too bad. But I got a little silly earlier saying that I would recommend this movie to everyone. Honestly, I would recommend it over Troy. I feel like it's more fun than Troy. It's more faithful to the Homer style of bringing the gods in, bringing the mythic element into it.
I'd say from what I've seen so far, Troy is not a great movie, really, but it's very high budget. It's just all spectacle, except the parts where they fight in Troy. The battle sequences are pretty good. Wolfgang Petersen brings you can kind of the fighting is better than in most movies, which is so I have to say
it's not a bad movie.
I have to give Troy the edge over this so far, just because of Diane Kruger, and the fighting sequences are pretty cool in Troy so far. I gotta say,
it's not a bad movie. I don't know.
But between the fighting, when they talk, oh my gosh, not one of Brad Pitt's finest acting performances. It's more like he took the money to get super buffest Brad Pitt.
Well, and Pitt is doing kind of the Armand Asante thing. He's playing a very stiff, statuesque version of a classical hero.
In some ways, it feels like to watching Troy so far feels like a strange counterpart movie to Cold Mountain.
Interesting.
Like a different kind of movie.
Same time period, for sure.
It really is. Yeah, you're right.
I guess we're going to watch this Man versus Ape.
Ape versus Monster.
Ape versus Monster. All right. I have my assignment, folks. I have to take it. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us on this Odyssey.